available.
This is Webster Tarpley reporting tonight from Beirut, Lebanon. So let's sum up what we've understood so far about the crisis in Syria. The lessons we've drawn from this fact-finding tour, which includes the city of Homs, a full-day seminar in the city of Banyas near Tartus on the Mediterranean, where that Russian naval base is located, and then a visit to the Damascus military hospital, plus a lot of time spent moving around on the roads in Syria, and then coming now into Lebanon, right, crossing the Syrian-Lebanese frontier. Here, I think, are the findings, once again, in summary. There is no mass insurrection in Syria. It just isn't there. There is no mass political movement against President Assad or the Ba'ath Party regime. There is no civil war. And I myself, having been in Libya, I guess I know what a civil war in a modern Arab country looks like. And in this case, you just don't find it. The presence, in fact, of the military in everyday life is minimal. There are basically no checkpoints. The international airport, as I said before, the international airport is working fine. There are basically no checkpoints. All the time we were driving around on the roads, back and forth from Homs to Damascus and so forth, I think I saw one tank transporter, and the most the one convoy we saw was about 20 trucks on the road from Syria into Lebanon, right, a little bit north of the level of Beirut. So there's no mass killing of civilians by Syrians. If anything, by the Syrian army. There's no mass killing of civilians by the Syrian army. If anything, there is killing of the Syrian army by terrorists, and we're going to try to pin that down in just a minute. There is no demand by the masses of Syria to oust the Assad government. Rather, the main demand of the population of Syria is that the regime should do more, that they should send more army units into places like Homs, that they should have a quicker, rapid response to this situation, and that therefore they need to have a firmer line. In other words, the popular sentiment demands a crackdown. It is the exact opposite of what you've been told. So to state that again, remember, what you've heard from Al Jazeera, France 24, the BBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and just about everybody else, the Associated Press, don't forget them, is simply a tissue of lies. And again, what I found there is death squads on the Latin American model, the kinds of things that John Negroponte created in places like Argentina or Central America back in previous decades. The difference, once again, in the death squads in Syria is that whereas the death squads in Latin America or Central America were targeting specific groups, be they communists or trade unionists or other specific political parties or political tendencies, in this case, you're dealing with blind terrorism. You're simply dealing with random killing, and a killing as an end in itself. And all groups are equally susceptible to being attacked. You can be men, women, children. We've seen it all. You can be a Shiite. You can be a Sunni Muslim. You can be a Druze. You can be an Alawite. You can be any kind of Christian. You can be a Greek Orthodox, a Greek Catholic, a Syrian Catholic. You can be a Melkite. You are likely to be shot at by one of the death squads. And their typical way of operating is with snipers on the roofs of buildings. They also do kidnapping. The kidnapping seems to have gone down as this crisis has evolved. But the big thing that is going on is the sniper shootings and ambushes. So this, I think, is precisely the opposite of what you heard previously. Now, let me just go back and talk about some of these case studies that we did. The city of Homs, if you watch those awful Anglo-American media that I mentioned before, the city of Homs is supposed to be the epicenter of this entire crisis. And it's in particular the neighborhood of Zahra, Z-A-H-R-A, approximately transliterated into the Roman alphabet. So here's a place, we were there on Tuesday, and the group that I was with promoted with the help of some Christian churches, Oriental Christian churches here in Syria and indeed in Lebanon. We were the first foreign journalists into Homs, so this is already interesting in itself. It means that any report you've heard from Homs that purported to be an eyewitness account from street level was a lie. And it means that the morning I went to Homs, in a hotel in Damascus, I turned on the BBC, and they showed some bunch of people in the streets. You couldn't tell much about it. And then they showed some flames coming out of a window, and they said, this shows what's happening in Homs. Well, they lie. I was asked today at a press conference, what's your advice for the Western media? 2 words, stop lying. That would be a start. So we were driving into Homs, and we got to this Zahra neighborhood, right? So you think, my God, we're going right into the epicenter. We're going right into the eye of this hurricane. And first of all, you begin to see that the streets are kind of deserted. There's not a whole lot of people in the streets. And then when we got closer into the heart of this neighborhood, we see a demonstration, and it's 400, 500 people. And we get close, and, we say, oh, gee, should we get out of the bus? And yes, we should get out of the bus. So we get out of the bus, and we get down on street level. And first of all, the main point of this demonstration is nothing to do with party politics per se, but it's a demand for heating oil, for fuel oil. It can get pretty cold in Syria. Let me tell you, it can be really cold, and it can go from warm to cold relatively quickly. That has happened to me. So what these people were demanding is they want more fuel oil to be available at reasonable prices. And the method of the demonstration, which we thought originally would have been, anti-Assad, was to line up these plastic containers. Right, they're about the size of a sort of small to medium suitcase, and they lined up about 100 of them. And I have some shots of this. So they got these containers that are supposed to contain fuel oil, and they lined them up. And they're protesting that the governor of the province has not done enough to make this stuff available. And then the question becomes, are these people pro-Assad or anti-Assad? And they're militantly, aggressively pro-Assad. And not only that, they have pictures of Assad, generally Bashar, but also the father, right, Hafez. And these are not the sort of prefabricated portraits that the government gives people when it's time to have a thoroughly organized demonstration. Instead, what it is they were, these are pictures out of magazines and stuff like this. So people were holding this up, and they were chanting slogans in favor of Assad. And we talked to these people for a while, and then we got to the hospital, and this I think is really interesting. The hospital in this critical area of Zahra in Homs, right, the center of the fighting. Now, then the picture turns tragic, because talking to nurses, women nurses, male nurses, a couple of MDs, doctors, one I think I don't know what his specialty was. Another was an anesthesiologist, and what they were saying is that for quite a while now, there's been a steady stream of people coming in there killed. The day we were there, Tuesday, 7 wounded and 5 dead on that one day. And one member of the Syrian army had been killed by a group of 5 snipers. So let me continue in just a second. We'll be right back with this eyewitness, first-person report from Syria. And again, we're right in the middle of the first trip to Homs by any group of foreign journalists here on World Crisis Radio. Back in a minute.